The phone rang 6 times before it went to voicemail, just as it had for the past 3 years, 2 months, and 17 days. Hi, you've reached Margaret Chin. I can't come to the phone right now, but leave me a message, and I'll call you back as soon as I can. Have a wonderful day. Sarah closed her eyes and let her mother's voice wash over her like warm water. Even through the compressed digital recording, she could hear the smile in those words, the gentle lilt that made every sentence sound like an invitation to something better. "Hi, Mom," Sarah whispered into the phone, her voice cracking slightly. "It's me again." She sat in her car in the grocery store parking lot, groceries warming in the trunk, condensation forming on the windows as the November rain drummed against the roof. This had become her ritual, calling her mother's old number at least once a week, sometimes more when the weight of the world pressed too heavily on her shoulders. "I got promoted today," she continued, watching a young mother rush through the rain with a toddler clutched to her chest. "Regional manager. You would have been so proud. You always said I'd go far, remember? Even when I wanted to drop out of business school, you told me I was stronger than I knew." The voicemail beeped, indicating her time was up. Sarah ended the call and sat in silence, listening to the rain. She had been 28 when her mother died. A brain aneurysm, sudden and merciless. Margaret had been watering her garden on a Sunday morning, and by Sunday evening, she was gone. There had been no last words, no final goodbye, no chance to say all the things Sarah had always assumed she'd have time to say. The phone company had sent her a notice 6 months after the funeral, informing her that the account would be closed unless she continued making payments. Sarah had immediately set up automatic payments. $35 a month to keep her mother's voice alive in the digital ether. Her father thought it was unhealthy. Her therapist called it complicated grief. Her younger brother Daniel had stopped calling it anything at all, having learned that some pain was too private to comment on. But Sarah didn't care what anyone called it. All she knew was that sometimes, when the world felt too sharp and too cold, she needed to hear her mother tell her to have a wonderful day. The letter arrived on a Tuesday in March, nearly 4 years after her mother's death. Sarah almost threw it away, assuming it was junk mail. But something about the official letterhead made her pause. She tore it open while standing at her kitchen counter, her coffee growing cold beside her. "Dear valued customer. Due to the nationwide transition to a new area code system and the increasing demand for phone numbers, we will be reassigning inactive numbers in your region. Our records indicate that the number ending in 4747 has not been used for outgoing calls in over 3 years. The rest of the letter blurred. Sarah's hands began to shake. Inactive. They were calling her mother's number inactive. She read further. They were giving her 60 days. 60 days to port the number to an active account, or it would be released back into circulation, assigned to someone new. Someone who would record over her mother's greeting with their own voice. Someone who would make that number theirs. Sarah sank into a kitchen chair, the letter trembling in her hands. 60 days to say goodbye. She tried to port the number. Of course she tried. She spent 3 hours on the phone with customer service representatives, each one more apologetic than the last. But the technical limitations were clear. Her mother's old phone was a basic flip phone on a plan that no longer existed. The number couldn't be transferred to Sarah's smartphone without her mother's account PIN, which had been lost in the chaos after her death. The account was too old, the system incompatible, the technology obsolete. "I'm very sorry for your loss," the last representative said, and Sarah could hear that she actually meant it. "I understand this must be incredibly difficult. But without the PIN or the original account holder's authorization, there's nothing we can do." "She's dead," Sarah said flatly. "She can't authorize anything." "I know. I'm so sorry." Sarah hung up and called her mother's number. 6 rings, then that voice. "Hi, you've reached Margaret Chin." She called it 5 more times that night, just listening. Not leaving messages, just listening to the sound of her mother being alive, being warm, being present in the only way she still could be. She tried to port the number. Of course she tried. She spent 3 hours on the phone with customer service representatives, each one more apologetic than the last. But the technical limitations were clear. Her mother's old phone was a basic flip phone on a plan that no longer existed. The number couldn't be transferred to Sarah's smartphone without her mother's account PIN, which had been lost in the chaos after her death. The account was too old, the system incompatible, the technology obsolete. "I'm very sorry for your loss," the last representative said, and Sarah could hear that she actually meant it. "I understand this must be incredibly difficult. But without the PIN or the original account holder's authorization, there's nothing we can do." "She's dead," Sarah said flatly. "She can't authorize anything." "I know. I'm so sorry." Sarah hung up and called her mother's number. 6 rings, then that voice. "Hi, you've reached Margaret Chen." She called it 5 more times that night, just listening. Not leaving messages, just listening to the sound of her mother being alive, being warm, being present in the only way she still could be. The days passed with the cruel efficiency that time always has when you need it to slow down. Sarah found herself calling more frequently. Before work, during her lunch break, late at night when sleep wouldn't come and the house felt too empty. She started leaving longer messages. "Do you remember when I was 7 and I broke your favorite vase?" she said one evening, curled up on her couch with a glass of wine. "I blamed it on Daniel and you knew I was lying, but you never said anything. You just made me do extra chores for a month. I never apologized. I should have apologized." Another night, "I met someone. His name is James. He's kind, Mom. Really kind. He laughs at my jokes even when they're not funny. He brings me coffee without me asking. I think you would have liked him. I wish you could meet him. I wish that so much it physically hurts." And another, "I'm scared, Mom. I'm scared that I'm forgetting things. The exact shade of your eyes. The way you hummed while you cooked. The sound of your laugh, not from this recording, but your real laugh. It's slipping away and I can't hold on to it, and losing that feels like losing you all over again." The voicemail system never complained about the length of her messages. It just beeped and ended the call when her time was up, patient and indifferent. With 2 weeks left, Sarah did something she hadn't done in years. She went to her mother's grave. The cemetery was peaceful in the late afternoon light, cherry blossoms drifting across the manicured grass like pink snow. Sarah knelt beside the headstone, tracing her fingers over the engraved letters of her mother's name. "They're taking your number," she said aloud. "I tried to stop them. I really tried." A breeze rustled through the trees, carrying the sweet scent of spring flowers. "I know it's just a voicemail. I know it's not really you. But it's all I have left that feels alive. Your clothes don't smell like you anymore. Your handwriting in old birthday cards looks foreign now, like I'm forgetting how you formed your letters. But your voice on that recording, it's still you. Still warm. Still telling me to have a wonderful day." Sarah's vision blurred with tears. "I don't know how to let it go. I don't know how to let you go." She sat there for a long time, watching the sun sink lower, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. Her mother had loved sunsets. She had stopped whatever she was doing to watch them, claiming that each one was a gift that shouldn't be wasted. "I miss you," Sarah whispered. "God, I miss you so much." 1 week remaining. Sarah called the number and was startled when it rang 7 times instead of 6 before going to voicemail. Her heart lurched. Was it already changing? Was the system already beginning to reclaim it? "Hi, you've reached Margaret Chen." No. Still there. Still her mother. "I've been thinking about what you'd tell me to do," Sarah said. "You always had advice, even when I didn't want to hear it. Especially when I didn't want to hear it." She laughed, a sound caught between joy and sorrow. "You'd probably tell me that I'm being ridiculous. That you're not in a phone number. You'd say something wise and frustrating, like, 'I'm in your heart, sweetheart,' not in a voicemail greeting." Sarah wiped her eyes. "And I'd tell you that I know that. I do know that. But knowledge and feeling are different things, aren't they? I know you're gone, but hearing your voice makes me feel like maybe you're not completely gone. Like maybe some part of you is still here, still telling me to have a wonderful day." The beep came. Call ended. Sarah immediately called back. "The thing is, Mom, I don't think I've had a wonderful day since you left. I've had good days. Productive days. Days where I laugh or feel happy for moments at a time. But wonderful? I don't know if I remember what that feels like." She pressed her forehead against her hand, phone tight against her ear. I think I've been on pause. Frozen. Holding on to this one piece of you because if I let it go, it means accepting that you're really gone. Completely gone. And I'm not ready for that. I don't know if I'll ever be ready for that. 3 days before the deadline, Sarah's brother Daniel called. Dad told me about the phone number, he said gently. How are you doing? I'm fine. Sarah. She sighed. I don't know. How am I supposed to be doing? I don't know either, Daniel admitted. But I wanted you to know that I still have some of Mom's voicemails saved. From before. From when she'd call to check on me at college. I could send them to you if you want. They're not the same as the greeting, but it's her voice. It's something. Sarah felt her throat tighten. You have her voicemails? Yeah. 6 or 7 of them. I never deleted them. His voice grew thick. I listen to them sometimes too. They were both quiet for a moment, connected by shared grief and the ghost of their mother's voice. I'd like that, Sarah finally said. I'd like to have them. I'll send them tonight. Daniel paused. Sarah? It's okay to let go. She wouldn't want you stuck like this. I know. But it's also okay to not be ready. Grief doesn't have a timeline. After they hung up, Sarah sat with her phone in her hands, turning it over and over. That night, Daniel sent the voicemails. Sarah listened to each one twice, tears streaming down her face. Her mother asking Daniel about his exams, reminding him to eat vegetables, telling him she loved him, she was proud of him, he should call his sister more often. The recordings were imperfect, background noise, crosstalk, digital artifacts from being saved and transferred multiple times. But they were her mother, animated and real, talking about mundane things with all the love in the world. Sarah hadn't known these existed. For 4 years, she'd been guarding one voicemail greeting while her brother had been keeping these precious fragments safe. She wasn't alone in her grief. She had never been alone. The night before the deadline, Sarah drove to the beach where her mother had scattered her own mother's ashes 20 years ago. It was a place Margaret had loved, a rocky stretch of coastline where the waves crashed with primal force and the wind carried the salt smell of endless ocean. Sarah sat on a driftwood log as the sun began to set, painting the sky in her mother's favorite colors. She pulled out her phone and called the number one last time. 6 rings. Then, Hi, you've reached Margaret Chen. I can't come to the phone right now, but leave me a message, and I'll call you back as soon as I can. Have a wonderful day. Sarah took a deep breath, tasting salt air and tears. Hi, Mom. It's me. This is my last call. Tomorrow someone else will have this number, and your voice will be gone. Erased. Like it never existed. She watched the waves roll in, steady and eternal. I've been holding on to this so tightly because I was afraid. Afraid that if I lost this, I'd lose you. Afraid that I'd forget you. Afraid that the world would just keep moving forward and you'd become smaller and smaller in the rearview mirror until you disappeared completely. A seagull cried overhead, wheeling against the orange sky. But I realized something. You're not in this voicemail, are you? You're in the way I stop to watch sunsets now, even when I'm busy. You're in how I always leave a light on for people I love. You're in the garden I started last spring, even though I have no idea what I'm doing. You're in the way I try to be kind, the way you were always kind, even when people didn't deserve it. Sarah's voice grew stronger, clearer. You're in Daniel's saved voicemails that I didn't know existed. You're in Dad's careful way of making tea exactly how you taught him. You're in the recipes I cook and the advice I give and the way I've learned to love the life I have, even though you're not in it anymore. The sun touched the horizon, turning the ocean to liquid gold. I don't need this voicemail to keep you alive. You're alive in me. In us. In everyone you touched. And that's not going to change just because some phone company reassigns a number. Sarah felt something shift inside her chest, like a knot finally loosening. So this is goodbye, I guess. Not goodbye to you, I'll never say goodbye to you. But goodbye to needing this. Goodbye to being stuck. Goodbye to the version of me who couldn't move forward because moving forward felt like leaving you behind. She smiled through her tears, watching the sun sink lower. Thank you for being my mom. Thank you for every wonderful day you gave me and for teaching me that I can still have wonderful days even though you're gone. Thank you for your strength, your love, your terrible jokes, your perfect advice. your patience with my stubbornness. The beep sounded. Sarah lowered the phone and let the last rays of sunset warm her face. She didn't call back. She sat there until the sky faded from gold to purple to deep blue, until the first stars appeared, ancient light from distant suns. Then she stood, brushed the sand from her jeans, and walked back to her car. 3 months later, Sarah was in the grocery store when her phone rang with an unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. Hello. Hi, is this Sarah? A young woman's voice, uncertain and kind. My name is Emma Rodriguez. I know this is going to sound really strange, but I just got this phone number and I've been getting voicemails. From you. To someone named Margaret. Sarah's heart stopped. She stood frozen in the produce aisle, gripping a bag of apples. The phone company must not have cleared the voicemail system, Emma continued quickly. I heard one by accident, and then I listened to a few more and I wanted you to know that I'm not upset. And I wanted to tell you that your mom sounds like she was an amazing person. Sarah couldn't speak. Couldn't breathe. I hope it's okay that I called. I just thought, if it were my mom, I'd want someone to tell me. To let me know that her voice is still out there, you know? Even if it's just in old voicemails that a stranger heard by accident. Thank you, Sarah managed, her voice barely a whisper. Thank you for calling. Of course. Emma paused. I'm going to delete them now. I just wanted you to know they existed, and that whoever Margaret was, she clearly raised someone who loved her very much. That's beautiful. After they hung up, Sarah stood in the grocery store and cried. Not from grief, but from a strange, unexpected sense of grace. Her messages had survived. For 3 more months, her mother's voice had existed in the digital space, held by a voicemail system that hadn't quite let, and now a kind stranger had made sure she knew. Had honored that love instead of simply erasing it. Sarah finished her shopping in a daze. That night, she called James and told him the whole story, about the voicemail, the 4 years of calls, the goodbye at the beach, and the unexpected phone call today. What are you feeling? He asked gently. Sarah thought about it, really thought about it. Grateful, she finally said. Sad, but grateful. Ready. Ready for what? Ready for wonderful days, she said, and meant it. On what would have been her mother's 65th birthday, Sarah planted a cherry tree in her backyard. She worked the soil with her hands the way her mother had taught her, mixing in compost and speaking quietly to the small sapling as she settled it into the earth. This is for you, Mom, she said, patting the soil firm around the roots. So you can bloom every spring. So I can sit under your shade and remember that wonderful days are still possible. Still real. She watered the tree carefully, then sat beside it as the afternoon sun filtered through its delicate branches. Sarah pulled out her phone and opened the folder where she kept her mother's old voicemails from Daniel, along with voice memos she'd been recording for the past few months, her own memories, stories about her mother that she'd been putting into words so they wouldn't fade. She didn't need to call a disconnected number anymore. She didn't need to hold her breath through 6 rings and wait for a recording. Her mother was here. In the tree. In the memories. In the way Sarah had learned to let go and hold on at the same time. In the wonderful days she was learning to have again. The cherry tree's shadow lengthened across the grass, and Sarah closed her eyes, feeling the warmth of the sun on her face. Somewhere in the distance, a phone rang. Someone answered it with love. Life continued, as it always did. And that, Sarah realized, was exactly what her mother would have wanted. She had her wonderful day after all.